James Thomas Beall Jr. has served, well, he's the Valley Water Director for District 4 since 2022. And he was quite the free agent acquisition. He served in the California State Senate from 2012 to 2020, representing the South Bay and Silicon Valley. And prior to that, he served as a member of the State Assembly, representing the 24th District for 6 years. Before that, a member of the Santa Clara County Board of Supervisors for 12 years. And before that, a member of the San Jose City Council for 14 years. And before that, the San Jose Planning Commission started. I was going to kid that you started, in high school or something, but actually it was just at 24, pretty soon after. So that is well over 40 years of experience. And I mean, it's amazing, that Valley Water has such a veteran, seasoned legislator. So anyway, Director Beall is probably best known for transportation issues, like chairing the county traffic authority and passage of the funding for that helped build highways 85, add to 101, 237, as well as working with the Metropolitan Transportation Commission and sponsoring bills SB1, SB 595, which paved the way for BART to the South Bay. And then I also want to mention SB3, which was a big $4 billion bond for affordable housing and veterans home ownership. So, and then lastly, just want to mention the local roots, besides commuting to Sacramento, but he was born in San Jose, lifelong resident, went to Bellarmine College, and earned a degree in political science from San Jose State, focusing on urban planning and public finance, two areas which he's known for. So that's proven to be strength. So welcome to Waterpalooza, Director Beall.
Hi.
Candace, is it possible to get more of a close-up?
Sure. We'll do it.
Great.
Thank you. The water district's a special purpose agency. It deals with basically the way I describe it is three things. We provide the wholesale water supply for 2 million people in Silicon Valley. The businesses, everybody here, we're the wholesale provider. And then we are responsible for flood control. And that includes the creeks and also the bay, the sea level rise in the bay that we deal with. And then we're the stewards for the streams. And as you can see, a lot of these issues are very complicated and controversial. The stream stewardship, we're dealing with about 1,000 homeless people that live in the creeks. We're trying to find shelter for them so they don't have to live in our creeks. That's one of the jobs. Water supply, we have 2050 water supply master plan. And I always say the simple thing is we get water from 4 places. Importing water through both Hetch Hetchy and then the Pacheco Pass, San Luis Reservoir. That's our half of the water that we have. And we also do groundwater. We have 11 reservoirs. We percolate the water, and that supplies us with water from underground. We started a recycle water facility. We have now a small one. It's about 5% of our water, but now we're going to expand it, try to increase that. And I think the biggest way we provide water is we don't provide water at all. and that's conserving water, and that's probably the cheapest way to provide water is to encourage conservation, using less water. Um, and, the focus of the 2050 plan is all those areas trying to deal with that and try to figure out if it's going to be affordable. And then on top of that, we have to deal with climate change. Climate change issues are going to definitely impact water in California and in the Western United States at least. So we're going to have basically less water for probably more people. And as we saw earlier, more demands. And, how we pay for that, how we finance that, whether or not we keep the valley here affordable, those are all the issues that we deal with our citizens. We have 7 board members. Each board member represents about 270,000 people, and they make their voices known, on these issues. You can see they're all controversial issues. So,
Yes, you mentioned, for instance, the climate and probably the slogan I've been keeping in mind is something about you don't win on climate if you don't win on water. It's such a central aspect of that. And but I did want to get back in terms of more about just even within the board setting, within the 7 board members, they represent probably more people than some congressman person across the country, and I just wondered in terms of your background in history. It's a working on it with an elected board, and I just wondered how that's been. I mean, just even in terms of transition from a legislative capacity, or in terms of how that has kind of worked out with the board.
yeah, I think I've always been interested in public finance and local government finance. Obviously, I did SB1 in 2017, which was the biggest infrastructure bill in the history of California. Now it's generating about $6.5 billion a year for road repair, transit, local streets, all your local street repairs funded by that. Thank goodness so they don't fall apart. And it comes down to who benefits equals who pays. I think there was a professor when I was in college that said the key issue is you figure out who benefits and then you figure out who pays. And if you're dealing with a user-oriented commodity like water, it really amounts to who's coming out, who's benefiting, and who pays. So what kind of, and then the other thing is, what kind of public policy should you have as a water district do you want to have? And to me, I want to encourage conservation. I want to encourage businesses to retrofit their buildings, homeowners to retrofit their buildings, like me and my wife did recently, and get those kinds of water issues dealt with so we could be more efficient about using water. And we all know that there's going to be less water in the future. I heard the presentation before. That's going to be that's a challenge. It's not going to come from the water that we now have. That amount of water is way and above the level of supply that we are anticipating in our area in our 2050 water supply master plan. And right now, half the water comes from outside the county. So in terms of like our security and our affordability here and just the ability to live here and have people that work here, we have to be worried about affordability and the rates that we charge for our water. So that those kinds of finance issues are paramount when you look at the board and the water district. And those are issues I'm pretty familiar with.
Yes, yes, that's certainly the case. And you know, I've always thought about well, I mean, also besides even the finance background is a planning background too, and
Yeah.
that I wondered, you know, as an undergrad, I mean, were you just mapping out your next 40 years, or it
No,
seems like it.
as undergrad, had no intention of getting into electoral politics. I was not.
Yeah,
I'm kind of a half nerd, half politician, if you want to put it that way. A lot of people describe me. I'm very into the subject matter. I focus on issues and I like to see efficiency. We have to be more efficient. So government efficiency was always something I really cared about a lot and have implemented a lot of work on that area too. So when you look at issues of the future, you really have to we're going to have to focus on efficiency, conservation, recycle. We have different types of recycled water. We have very pure recycled water you can drink. Then we have recycled water that is in the purple pipe that is not drinkable, non-potable, and you can use it for industrial purposes, or companies can take that purple pipe water and use it. Like we have a power plant in South San Jose there's a long purple pipe that goes from the San Jose water pollution control plant to the power plant down in Coyote, and they use that purple pipe water to generate the steam turbines and everything. So there's other kinds of things we can do with water that doesn't involve like making it totally drinkable, you know.
mhm.
And but the big thing to remember about water supply is we're already using more than we produce here locally. So we take about half of our water comes from the California water system in Northern California, Lake Shasta, the Delta. So we're already kind of what I call overdrafting at a state level for the water here. And a lot of people are looking at recycled water and conservation. And desalinization is now, we're actually looking at that, investing in desal plants. I think those are the kind of the future. If you want to look to the future, that's what we're looking at.
Yeah, we'll get deeper into that a little bit later this afternoon, actually.
Yeah, right. Mhm.
And I was really taken by I think it was a San Jose Spotlight article before, it probably was early 2022, and you kind of laid out some issue areas and topics. This was almost like musing. I mean, this is before an election. Bless you. And you had actually talked about the San Jose's general plan in the 70s and 80s about parks and trails along creeks, and you know, the importance of that as a resource, a community resource, and then you know, the intergovernmental agency, you know, kind of working together. And you mentioned the Coyote Creek flood, the latest Coyote Creek flood, and
Yes.
you know, you can go to Henry's High Life and look at, you know, the different rings.
I've lived through all those floods.
Yeah, and then also a
My whole
number
life.
of, you mentioned also a lot of the social issues, homelessness, affordable housing, racial equity, you know, as issues that a water district would address, which I think was an interesting perspective in terms of water board. So it's interesting how you laid so many of these things out, and it's come into play in a number of ways since then. In terms of the issues over the creek. I did want to get to the water supply though too before getting to the creeks. I mean, the 50% for Valley Water is actually pretty good compared to some other districts to the north, but that
Or
aside, I
Los
mean,
Angeles, yeah.
yeah, or Los Angeles. And I did see, well, just wanted to briefly touch on the San Luis Reservoir and the expansion of that, and actually Valley Water's part of that. And then a little bit on the Pacheco Pass possible expansion, as well. I mean, the San Luis seems a little further ahead, and apparently it's 130 MGD well, it's a 130 thousand acre feet expansion.
Yeah,
And
that's right.
Valley Water was not quite getting, just under half of that.
We get about 60,000 acre feet of that, and it'll be annual. And so there's a joint powers authority for that. And I think this is the wave of the future, by the way, to create these multiple agency authorities to solve problems, homelessness or water supply or whatever. And we are contributing our share of that to increase the height of the dam, to increase the capacity. The project is now underway. We got some money from the Bureau of Reclamation. We got the blessing. So we're going to get some federal money, which will help us keep our rates down to pay for it. It's a pretty cost-effective project if you want to look at it from a cost-benefit analysis kind of aspect. And I think it's a go. It does require a lot of the costs will be the real kind of moving the Highway 152 to a higher level, a little bit higher level, so they won't get flooded when we raise the dam height. So the project's a go. It's a pretty simple project. Can be completed in a construction timeline fairly efficiently. So it's a good, wise use of investing in water supply. So the water is already there. We already use some of that water. We're just raising the dam height to use a little more and create more capacity.
Yeah, we had Canon Michael on a couple years ago, actually, laying this out, and it's great to see.
He's the chair of the board
Yeah.
of the Joint Powers Authority, Cannon. He raises tomatoes. He's a tomato.
He raises a lot of stuff there. Yeah, we talked about that. But
I used to pick tomatoes, so when I was growing up here,
yeah.
Yeah.
And well, I'm not sure if there's anything new on Pacheco Pass. I mean, perhaps in contrast, I mean, San Luis, I think they haven't fully closed the funding, but they're pretty far up the path.
Well, Pacheco is a longer term project. We have worked on that. It's as opposed to the last project, the San Luis Reservoir. There is no joint powers authority for Pacheco. It's all on our backs if we decide to go ahead with it. And there's a lot of unknown costs because it'll be later down the road when we start building that project. One of the costs that we're worried about right now, of course, is the labor costs. That 65–70% of the construction workforce for these kind of projects are Hispanic, and about a third of that is undocumented. And we're worried about labor supply, obviously. We're worried about materials. The cost of those things could go up. So big construction projects, people are real nervous about cost escalation, okay? when you talk about those kinds of projects. We got other projects to do, like upgrade and repair our pipe, our water piping system, to make sure it's earthquake safe. We got 5 reservoirs that were built in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, and we have to make those seismically safe so we can fill them to the capacity. And some of those projects have to be done right away because we have earthquake safety issues, dam safety issues. So we're going to do those projects as well. So we got a lot on our plate in terms of water supply. We're now upgrading we have 3 water treatment plants. We're upgrading all those water treatment plants from 1960s technology to current technology. And so we got a lot. It's a heavy construction agency, a lot of construction. We're doing the flood control projects on the main rivers. Coyote Creek is the one we're doing now so we don't have that flood that we had in San Jose where so many people were affected. So we're very heavy on managing projects, construction. That's kind of my ball game. I'm interested in that. That's why I got on the board. And I'll just mention also, I had some emphasis on housing, and I've always been involved in that, affordable housing, promoting that. I did the bond in 2018 with the governor's support. And I think that we have to provide more housing so we can get people out of the creeks. We've got 1,000 people there. We need that joint, more of these joint collaborative entities to be created so we can get things done. We are donating property now to build housing for homeless people. And we got a project that's about to get underway, construction. We even changed the law last year to allow us to get involved in helping move homeless people out of the creeks. And we're, we're balancing a lot of balls at once, as you can see. So all this involves the basic mission of the water district.
Yes, we will be, actually, the next session features Genevieve Lucas Cornwell.
Yes,
And she get into the mechanics of that of the transfer. I mean, there was the AB 1469 last year, the Clara bill, and I mean, you mentioned too that when there's almost like a charter change or a specific functions needed, the Valley Water as it was created as a legislative district, needs legislation to do it. So that is on now. There was also the grants pass decision with the Supreme Court, which was I mean, so there's a lot of things, and also even the governor had an executive order about homeless encampments and shelter. But the board recently had a vote last week, and so I guess the question at this point, in terms of the I guess the continuum of care, and Genevieve will get into explaining all that as well. At this point, I think the program's supposed to start on December 26th.
We're going to start talking to people in the creeks and hopefully encourage them to relocate out of the creeks as we go along with these projects, trying to get people into shelter, trying to find placements, and work our way through it so we can get our numbers down. And we're going to need the help from the county and the city and the state, which are the main funders of affordable housing. And we also, well, I'll just say this, I chaired the, you didn't mention this, but I chaired the Committee on Mental Health and Substance Abuse in both the Assembly and the Senate, and introduced much legislation. We need to have stronger mental health and substance abuse programs. There should be no restrictions. Everybody realizes that the cost of not having good mental health and substance abuse is huge on society. And we have to have insurance coverages, public funding for those programs, because if we don't, we just end up spending more and more money for untreated people. It just costs the public more when you don't treat somebody. But when you do treat somebody, it works. I can verify, all the studies show it works. And the cost to the public will be much less. Cost to the corrections system will be much less. Cost to the health system would be much less. So, so I'm being an
Yes,
advocate here for
points
that.
taken. I'm sorry?
I mentioned this, and then some of the old school people say, well, it's not the responsibility of the water district, we shouldn't worry about that. That's not our responsibility. And my answer would be, well, we're spending like $10 million a year cleaning up encampments and creek cleanups. And then we have all this, we have 1,000, probably they say 700, probably some people say 1,000 people living in the creeks. Some of them are seniors. We have kids living in the creeks. We have people with substance abuse problems, mental health problems. It's because they're not treated and not cared for adequately. So the water district, has to work with the agencies that are the main responsible parties for that to make sure that we help them do their job as best they can. So that's our role. We can't do it ourselves. That's not our job, but we can help them, and we should help them.
I point back to that San Jose Spotlight piece because you even mentioned that before you ran for the board, about the water district you felt was too isolated and needed to work more closely with other government agencies. And yeah, that's, in this case, this is all about, that kind of cooperation, because I mean, moving people from these creeks, they generally don't have a lot of options, but I mean, in order, for it to be successful, they need a lot of wrap services. Well, that continuum of care kind of concept, which includes a lot of what you've been talking about as well. It's also good to see, the work that Darrell Steinberg started, and has been kind of continued in terms of funding generally for mental health services as well.
Yeah, that was
I'm sure you
Mental Health Services
know
Act.
more about that than I do.
Mental Health Services Act, they have a commission. I was the Senate's representative on that commission for 6 years. And I worked with Darrell very closely when the law was created. The ballot measure approved a funding for mental health. It wasn't to replace the system of funding from Medi-Cal and other programs that we need to have. The county has been strong on mental health compared to other places. They're now building a psychiatric hospital next to Valley Medical Center. We hope that we can take some of the more severe people and relocate them in. Some of them don't need housing, they need hospitalization. It's not housing they need to be hospitalized.
Yeah.
And we need to have places for them as well. We have a problem in the creeks where staff's trying to do cleanups and projects and stuff, and then they get threatened. There's been guns, knives, all that. And it inhibits our staff from getting in and trying to do their work. And they're not really trained or equipped to deal with that situation, but some of the county and the city people are, in terms of trained people that know how to deal with people that are threatening and so forth. So we need to have like these agencies work with us, and we're willing to work with them. We support more housing for these people that are living in our creeks. We support that.
Yeah, well, that's great to hear. I mean, obviously, there's a devil lurking in these details, so we will be talking about so like Santa Clara continuum of care and that whole kind of concept as far as the cooperation between the organizations that can help. I did want to ask a quick question about an issue that will be coming up in the new year, and that's artificial turf in Santa Clara County. And Valley Water has a stated position on it, which was great to see. One of the unintended consequences of the drought of 2014 was to think that plastic turf was a good idea from a water saving standpoint. And it actually turns out it isn't a good idea. There is now studies which show at the very least it uses as much water as natural turf, because you have to clean it with some pretty nasty stuff and cool it. And so what then it creates runoff. So I just wondered if you had thoughts about the upcoming Board of Supervisors consideration of
We don't need
turf.
artificial turf, okay? It's like you said, it's a water waster. What we need people to encourage conservation. When you take a single family home, about half the water is inside, half the water is outside. So if you want to tackle the outside, you gotta deal with the heavy water users like lawns and things like that, certain plants, and then re-landscape your properties to include low water users. You can have beautiful gardens, beautiful gardens. My wife and I tore out our lawn like 15 years ago. We planted California native species in the front yard, and she had me moving around with rocks, move that here, move that there. So we did it together. I didn't know later that I found out, hey, the water district actually gives a rebate to people to re-landscape their homes and businesses, and we will help them with the planning for that. And I think that conservation, using less water, hey, that's the cheapest thing you can possibly do. And it increases the value of your house. If you retrofit the inside with a water-wise plan, your businesses as well. I think everybody saves money, and then if you hire somebody, it's going to be somebody locally, so the money will stay in the local area for the local economy. So it's good for jobs. So I think water conservation, water-wise planning for all, and retrofitting buildings is important. In fact, the ABAG is now Associated for Bay Area Governments now doing a 2050 plus plan for the Bay Area. And part of their plan is to have older buildings retrofitted to reduce water use. Older buildings, commercial buildings, companies, server farms, if they haven't been recycling water, as you heard in the last presentation, get those retrofitted to save water. And we can all do it. We don't need to go and try to buy water from the California project 10, 20 years from now after climate change. And guess what, folks? It's going to cost a lot of money if we have to do that. A lot of money. There'll be less water. And what happens when there's scarcity? Price goes up.
Yeah, no, that's certainly a question. Well, Director Bell, I really appreciate you coming on, and there's a lot more that I can ask you about, but I think we're going to have to let you go.
Yeah.
And conclude with the Memorial Felicia Marcus magic wand question. that if you could change something about, and I do have this doctored photo of Felicia with a magic wand.
I know Felicia, yeah.
I can't find it this morning, but basically the question was if you had a magic wand, if you could change something about California water or valley water, what would it be?
I think I would say if we need to have water, we should use less water and we should recycle water. I think those are the most cost effective long term. I'm looking at like 30, 40, 50 years from now. Those are the most important things we need to not drop the ball on now, because if we drop the ball on now, we'll end up paying more later. So we could do more in recycling, businesses, homeowners, and we can do more in conservation. And when I say recycling, I also include desalinization. That will be looked at. I think that those are kind of like the future. There's not going to be more water. It's going to be less, folks. It's going to be less water looking ahead. So we have to deal with that as a reality.
Well, thank you once more, and look forward to the new year. And I don't know if she's on now, but well, there's a new director, Shiloh Ballard, coming on, and
He's getting sworn in 2 days.
Okay, and so well, thanks again. Look forward to the other board meetings coming up.
Thank you, Dennis.